We all worry. It's just part of being human, right? But what if I told you that worry isn't just some bad habit we have to manage? What if it's a really deep spiritual problem? Well, today, drawing from a lecture by theologian Dr. Bill Mounce, we're going to do a theological takedown of worry and break down its logic piece by piece. And you gotta love this quote from Dr. Mounce himself. I mean, how relatable is that? If we're being honest with ourselves, we've all been there. It's like we have this special skill for inventing anxieties about stuff that probably won't even happen. It's this universal human thing. But what's really going on inside our heads when we get caught in that worry spiral? Okay, so let's get to the heart of it. The argument really starts right here. Worry is basically the illusion of control. Think about it. We feel like if we just turn a problem over and over and over in our minds, we're somehow, I don't know, doing something about it. But are we, really? Or are we just spinning our wheels, trying desperately to grab the controls for things that are completely out of our hands? So let's dig into how this lecture frames the main problem. And this is a big shift because it takes worry out of the category of just a bad feeling and puts it squarely into the realm of a major spiritual issue. And that leads us to this pretty blunt statement. This is really the foundation of the whole argument. It's a tough one to swallow, for sure. It reframes worry from just a bad habit into something a lot more serious from a theological perspective. And this phrase, it just nails the point. Worry is practical atheism. Think about what that means. The idea is that when we're worrying about the very things God has promised to handle, our food, our clothes, our basic needs, we are in that moment acting as if he's not there. Or maybe that he's there but just doesn't care. We're living like functional atheists in that specific area of our lives. All right, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? How do we fix this? The lecture lays out 3 key lessons, and the very first one asks us to just look at the world around us. And the instruction is to look intently at the birds of the air. This isn't just a, hey, look, a bird kind of glance. The original Greek word here means to study something intensely, to really fix your gaze on it. The point is to stop, to observe, and to actually learn from the birds. They become Exhibit A in the case against worry. So check out the logic here. It's super clear, almost like a mathematical proof. Step 1. Birds don't sow or reap or build giant barns. They're not stressing about their 401ks. Step 2, and yet God feeds them every day. Step 3, and you are so much more valuable than they are. When you lay it out like that, the conclusion is, well, it's pretty hard to escape, isn't it? And this question really just drives the whole thing home. Why would we believe that God won't take care of what he made, especially the part of creation he says he values the most? I mean, when you worry, you're essentially betting that the Creator will fail to sustain his own creation. That's a direct hit on what we believe about God's very character. Okay, so lesson number 2 shifts gears a little bit. It moves away from the deep theology and straight into just pure, simple common sense. It's all about looking at worry from a super practical angle. And here's the question. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? I mean, come on. The answer is so obviously no. Worry has never made anyone live longer. It's never magically solved a single problem. It's completely and fundamentally a useless activity. It has zero power. And this quote from the theologian John Stott, it takes it a step further. He said, worry doubles trouble. It's not just useless, it's actually harmful. Think about it. If the bad thing you're worrying about never happens, you put yourself through all that misery for nothing. And if it does happen, you've now suffered twice, once when you worried about it, and once when it actually happened. Either way, you lose. It's a terrible deal. All right, for the third lesson, we're heading back outside. We're going to look at nature again for another really powerful piece of evidence against the whole logic of worry. And just like before with the birds, the idea is to stop and really see the flowers of the field, to consider how they grow. These simple, beautiful, and honestly pretty temporary parts of creation have something really important to teach us. So here's the argument. Flowers don't work, they don't spin thread, and yet not even King Solomon in all his glory was dressed as beautifully as one of them. The point is about God's extravagant care.
If God goes to all that trouble to clothe the grass of the field with such stunning beauty, grass that's literally here today and thrown in the fire tomorrow, how on earth could we believe he won't take care of our basic need for clothes?
So after laying out these two powerful arguments from nature, the lecture delivers this really sharp conclusion. The real root of our worry isn't a lack of stuff. It's not about the money or the food. The problem is our faith. It's identified with this specific phrase, "O you of little faith."
So, what does that even mean, little faith? It's a really important concept to get right. It's not about having no faith at all. It's about having a faith that's, well, inconsistent. Let's break that down. And here's the key definition. Little faith is when you have enough faith to believe in God for your eternal salvation, which is, let's face it, a huge, mind-bending concept. But you don't have enough faith to trust him with the day-to-day stuff. The food, the rent, the bills. It's a total paradox.
And this really puts that logical inconsistency on full display. Let's be honest, which one seems like the harder task? Redeeming all of humanity for all time, or making sure you have lunch tomorrow? When we have little faith, we're basically telling God, hey, I trust you with the impossible eternal stuff, but this whole daily provision thing, I'm not so sure you can handle that. It just doesn't make any sense when you see it laid out like this. Okay, so here's the crucial point. If the problem is worry and the root cause is little faith, what do we actually do about it? Well, the lecture wraps up by flipping the script. It moves away from the negative command, don't worry, and gives us a positive, actionable command to replace it with. And here it is. This is the ultimate antidote to worry. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So instead of letting our minds be consumed by worry about our own stuff, we're told to fill that space by proactively chasing after God's priorities. And the promise attached is huge. When you get your focus right, all that other stuff you were worrying about, it'll be taken care of. And finally, to make it super practical, the lecture gives us 3 steps to actually grow our faith. Step 1, we just have to recognize that trusting God is a must, it's not optional. Step 2, we have to actively retrain our brains to think correctly, to remember the logic of the birds and the flowers. And step 3, and this is the big one, we have to actually do it. We have to step out in faith and put that belief into action. So let's leave it with this final, really challenging question. It's one thing to say you trust God's power, to believe he can provide for you. But do you also trust his way of providing? Do you trust his methods, his timing, his choices, even when they look nothing like what you wanted or expected? That, right there, is the real test of faith. And that's the ultimate takedown of worry.